As much as I want to jump into that
And
before the 30 seconds is up,
it's for this reason that I didn't make it into regional semifinals for the Shark Rodeo, because they changed the rules midway through and they mandated chainmail shirts. I'm not doing it.
you're a traditionalist. I mean, everybody knows that. Oh, hey, what's up, everybody?
You call it a sport while people are wearing chainmail? Come on.
Welcome to Wednesday night, the best night of the week to watch podcasts, intros, post shows, regular shows, all that. End of the day, there's a video going out with a brawl between all the podcasts, and let's be honest, the guys with the maracas, the machetes, and the whips are clearly going to win. And this is the video evidence that we survived. So, welcome to another episode of Sawdust Talk. We're super happy that some of you are watching, and later you might be listening. Hello. I'm Braden with Little Bug Woodworking. I got my friends Jessie from Building Jessie and TJ with TJT Workshop here. And tonight, before we introduce our special guest, who has a very interesting origin story, we want to thank our sponsors, Surf Prep and George Supply Co. If you haven't checked out Surf Prep's abrasives, their personalities are not abrasive, but their abrasives are freaking abrasive. So get up in that. The best thing about Surf Prep and George Supply Co. too is they let us just make up whatever we want to say at the beginning of these things, and that's a freedom we need. So welcome, Mark Adams. Mark Adams Pictures.
That's me.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
We're excited to have you.
Let's just yeet into this, because you're part of an art form that we don't normally have guests that are like focused in.
Belly dancing?
Yeah. That's the perfect segue to what I really wanted to talk about. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, the whole elevator pitch thing.
Well, I've been a commercial photographer for 20 plus years, probably more than that, honestly, but I don't really want to admit that. And I've shot, 20 years of that was in studio, and then I shifted into the portrait thing, and that's how I met the maker community.
Just like bumped into the maker community, like you were just doing some
Tell us
portraits at JC
about
Penney.
you makers and motorcycles.
Okay, well, so in Cleveland, Ohio, there's Skidmark Garage. That's the community motorcycle garage that my friends Brian and Molly have. And then the nonprofit side of that is MotoGo Cleveland, and that brings shop classes back to high schools by bringing Honda 350s, I think, like in the 70s Honda version. So they've got carburetors, they've got drum brakes, they've got all those stuff. And they teach kids who don't have the opportunity to have shop classes, and so many shop classes are closed down. So anyway, 5 or 6 years ago, I guess, I was on a motorcycle trip across the U.S. I left California, hopped on my motorcycle, camped off it for 4 or 5 months, stopped into Cleveland to do some work on it because I could rent some time on the bench, and then fell in love with Cleveland, fell in love with everybody there because Cleveland is an amazing city. Then I moved all my stuff there, and I was hanging out. I'd set up my stuff in the building for some other event. And then Lincoln had some people come in for some social media stuff. This was the year before Spring Make, so that was 2018. And I had a set a little bit more elaborate than I use at Maker Camp set up. And I can't remember who was the first one, but there were probably 20 makers that had come to Cleveland from invited by Lincoln, and they had classes, and they kind of talked about how they would work together. And so I saw them walking around my garage, and I was like, oh, they got a cool look. So let me grab them and take some shots. I took a couple pictures, and they're all like, hey, let me get a picture with Jimmy. And I'm like, who's this Jimmy guy? And so then I sent the pictures off to them because they were just in another part of the building hanging out, eating some Chinese food in the garage. And that's how I met the maker community. It was really 100% random, and so that's how.
So Jimmy DiResta was there.
Yeah.
How are so many of these like? This is how I got connected to the maker community. How are so many of them centered around like Jimmy DiResta, just like popping into stories all over the place?
Well, I mean, I think like he has such a great platform to kind of spread what you can do with your hands, and his personality is really obviously outgoing and very talented. And once you've kind of seen what the maker community is emotionally for people, it's just really great to be a part of that. So I think Jimmy really kind of brings everybody into that.
Well, if he brought you into it, then we're all lucky.
Please.
What's that?
I said, well, if he brought you into it, then we're all just really lucky. So
TJ like can't control himself. He wants to ask motorcycle questions. I can tell.
It's all right. You can ask as many as he wants.
Oh my God, I'm chomping at the bits. What were you riding across the country?
2007 BMW Dakar. It's a F650 GS. It's kind of their dual sport.
Wonderful.
It's not a great bike at either dirt or road, but it's okay for both.
Yeah, I had a Kawasaki Versys. I have the same opinion of that bike.
Yeah. And then, I mean, they're fine. They're very comfortable, but if you get them in the dirt, you're like, the weight's a little too front, or it's a little too back, or it's a little too top. So what, do you still have the Versys, or?
No, I have a bandsaw now.
Oh, those are harder to ride.
Yeah, much harder to ride, but my love affair runs just as deep.
Okay.
No, I when the second kid came around, I had to take a break from motorcycles, but I have driven a Ural with the wife.
Right. Okay.
That's the sidecar rig, and I'm just waiting for the boys to get just a little bit older, and then we're gonna blast the Indiana Jones theme on loop from a Bluetooth speaker and ride a Ural all over St. Louis.
Okay.
Like you do.
Now that's where you're at?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I rode up through St. Louis.
So, yeah, did you come in on 70?
Let's see, because when I started, I left California, or I left San Francisco, rode down to LA to Vegas to Phoenix to Tucson to like the Bisbee area, and then down through a little bit of Oklahoma, just a little tip of Texas, up through Missouri and Indiana.
Yeah, 44 into St. Louis. Very cool. Yeah, that's beautiful country. Did you happen to stop by the salt flats that they have hidden in Oklahoma?
I didn't stop by the salt flats, but I went through the white sands in New Mexico.
Very cool. Very, very fun stuff. Also, mentioning 70s Honda 350s, I actually have the frame for one like 20 feet from me right here.
Okay, nice.
We're going to geek out about motorcycles and cameras the whole show, but let's talk a little bit more about the Cleveland scene and what you thought maybe initially sparked the joy of hanging around with all of these greasy weirdos.
Well, so when I moved there, or when I rode through there, there's a building that has a bunch of different businesses in it, and it's very rough and industrial. And one was Skidmark. Another one was Rust Belt Riders, which does compost. Another one was my friend's business, RBX, which is Rebuilders Exchange. They do architectural salvage. So they've got about 70,000 square feet of architectural salvage material. So, You've got flooring, you've got doors, windows, turn of the century stuff, porcelain, whatever you want. And they do fabrication in the back of that through their fab lab, where they do like railings, they'll do custom furniture, they'll do anything out of metal you want. So if you want like window screens or anything like that, they do that. And then upstairs in that building was Soulcraft Wood Shop, and that was a community maker space focused primarily on wood, but now they do wood, and there's Urban Forge teaches blacksmithing classes on the weekends. You can like rent your own personal space in there and kind of start your making thing and like kind of maybe build a business plan, and then kind of use that as an incubator to kind of decide if you want to do it. And so all these places were all focused on just kind of giving back, being part of a community. And that really appealed to me because I was looking for a place to land.
So where are you right now? Are you in Cleveland right now? Can you tell
No,
people,
right now I'm in Portland. I split my time between Portland and Cleveland because I have family and grew up here. And then Cleveland's where Cleveland's where I really want to build out what I do. But Portland is where I've got to be right now. And I love Portland. You know, since I grew up here, I'm very familiar with it. But I spent most of my life on the West Coast, and now I want to just a different vibe.
Portland, Maine? Portland, Oregon.
Portland, Oregon.
Georgia.
Yeah, Portland, Oregon.
West Coast, Best Coast. Just saying.
He's making the most.
Yeah, when are you going to come down one of the maker meetups in Portland?
Time difference. He's like, yeah, we just had.
I would love to come down to a maker meetup down there. The issue is that every time they happen, it's like a Thursday night.
Right.
Which is just a very strange day for me to just be like, I'm going to take off work for 2 days and drive down to Portland. And I'd probably end up staying the night, right? So if it was a Friday or Saturday, it would make it more appealing to me.
Make it like a weekend kind of trip and like
yeah. I'd probably even bring the beard. I mean, it'd be great.
Would you bring the guy attached to the beard, or like
life drinking beer and playing pinball at ground control? Like life would be good.
No, just the beard, not the person.
I'm still kind of convinced that thing can like just detach. I mean, just the beard is.
It's just an animal that lives on his face.
The beard is like an essence. It's not just one man. It's kind of like Doctor Who. Like the beard it goes where it goes.
No, that fella doesn't have a beard. That beard has a fella. Let's get real.
This is true.
So Mark, be honest, because there's not a lot of kids that listen. What is the longest wheelie that you've ever done down a highway at 110 miles an hour? Because that's
That would
my
not be.
understanding.
That's not how I generally ride. I'm in it kind of for the long haul, so I generally don't do the crazy shit. I do want to focus on getting better on the dirt because that's kind of one of my weaknesses. But I do really any kind of motorcycle. I really love it. But it's one of those things where I haven't had enough time this wintertime. And that's really it's kind of an excuse, but I do need to get back onto them. But no wheelies for me.
I briefly had a motorcycle, and the first time I took it on the interstate, I thought, oh, I really don't want to be next to the semi. I'm going to speed up a little bit and get away from it. And then next thing I knew, I was like, oh, I'm probably doing like 80. I should slow down to the speed limit of 75. And I looked down, and it's 105. And I'm like, cool, I'm going home, and I'm never riding this again. I don't have the sort of self-control for this.
I mean, you definitely, for the longevity, you have to have a little bit of self-control, but it is fun.
The wind in the hair.
Braden, you sort of went from a two-wheeled motorcycle to a four-wheeled Jeep, which is as close as you can get to a motorcycle with four wheels.
And let's be honest, Braden, you don't have self-control in general, so I don't know why you thought a motorcycle would fix that.
Oh, I was young and dumb as one is when they buy rickety old motorcycles off, from guys on Craigslist. So the safest thing for me was to chop off the back half and start modifying it, because you can't ride it if the engine's not in it. So And then years later, you sell the whole thing just as a pile of parts.
Yep, pretty common.
To
That's
guys
why you
like
have to have two bikes. You have
Gene.
to have a running bike and a project bike.
At least
I feel-
one project.
Right, yes. That's the thing. That's why I like motorcycles much better than cars as far as like project-based things go, because to disassemble and spread out a car to work on, I mean, you've got 2 or 3 cars worth of space that you have to lay it flat and everything. But a motorcycle, you can be pretty self-contained, so you can have 2 or 3 projects in the same space.
That was the nice thing when I pulled the engine from the CBR. It wasn't light, but I could kind of like move it around myself. I
Right.
couldn't do that with the Jeeps.
No.
I just feel like Mark is enabling you right now, Braden. Like, oh, it's okay. You just have to have a running one and a working on one. It's fine.
No,
Yeah, do you have 2 project Jeeps, or do you just have the one?
I recently sold my project Jeep, like 6
Was it
months
also in
ago.
boxes?
No, actually, I pulled it out of the storage unit. It had not left the storage unit in like 3 years, but maybe once. And this was a trailer Jeep, so I mean, this thing was massive, and there was not a street legal thing on it, and it was, pardon my French, bitchin'. Like, it was sweet.
Okay, Hannah.
But alas, it turns out when you've got a completely not street legal rock crawler and you live in one of the flattest states in the country and you've got to
Right.
drive 3 hours and then you start a full-time woodworking business, and it's just one of those things. So I'll try it again. I have a Gladiator. It's bright green. Again, bitchin'.
Well, it's a good thing you don't like to attract attention.
No, I'm very subtle.
Yeah, modesty, he told me, was his most endearing characteristic.
Who are we talking about?
That and my
Braden.
cheeky boyish smile.
So, Mark, can we talk a little bit about your lighting setup and camera preferences stuff, so that if we do get some camera nerds listening in, that we can chit chat?
Canon or Nikon? Answer the question.
Hasselblad.
Well, over the course of my career, I've shot all of them. So I currently have a couple of Canons that I use. For a long time, I was shooting Hasselblad in the studio, and those are great, but they're just not really suited for the location stuff that I do. Or because I split my time between motorcycles, shooting motorcycles, and then also, people, and then obviously whatever other kind of product things. And as 20 years of experience, you've shot quite a few different things. But I started back in the day when there was film. So, I've shot 8x10s and 405s and 2 1/4 and 35 millimeter and 220 and all that kind of stuff too. So currently just digital.
So I have heard that 110 film, the one that looks like binoculars when you find it in your parents' dressers,
Yep.
is slowly making a little comeback, and that Rocky
I
Mountain
feel like there's a lot of people discovering film for their first time because they weren't born when it was phased out. I have mixed feelings about that from a production standpoint. It's a real challenge timeline wise. That was the main thing that really improved a lot. And the switch from film to digital was you had your turnaround. You could actually see exactly what you're doing. You could comp stuff together. You didn't have to wait for the lab to get it back, then to scan it and then send it off to somebody else. But there is a magic to it. And the one thing that I feel like has been lost, and I've talked about it in a couple other places. The process of thinking through what your choices are in photography and how you're going to end up at the end of it. If it's going to be black and white, you need to shoot it like it's going to be black and white. You can't shoot it like it's going to be color. The lighting has to be in a slightly different position. You're going to be paying attention to different things. You're going to be working with reflective surfaces differently. And that's one of the things that's been lost with digital, is because you can just shoot it. You've got all the color information there and you just convert it. At least that's how some people do it. Whereas before, you had to make a choice when you were shooting it, whether it was going to be black and white film or color, and you couldn't really take that. You can't take that color film and really make a good black and white print out of it. And you can't make that black and white, and you can't make a color without obviously some watercolors. So you don't get that experience of having to see only that kind of light work on a subject or a face or something. So that's one of the things I feel like has been lost with digital, but who knows? Maybe some people will start to understand it as a whole linear process of all the decisions you start to make and the equipment you're using, and not just, oh, I can change it later in post.
Yeah, and kids these days, no, the younger generations just don't know about slapping like a 4x5 transparency down onto a light box and staring at that through a loop and just seeing the depth and the color that there was. And I mean, I know you can inkjet yourself a transparency in that size from a massive file.
But I think it's also like they don't know what they don't know, right? Because they, when we look back at what our parents lived and what they were doing when they were kids, like that was a completely different world. And now we're the same thing. Like some of the people that have never known what it's like to not have a phone in your hand, it's just a different experience.
Funny story, got my daughter when she turned 10. I got her one of those little Polaroid.
Motorcycle?
No, not yet. Stop.
CRF 50, do it.
I got her one of those little Polaroid cameras.
Okay.
And the very first well, I didn't get it for her. It was a present from her brother. But she opened it. She was so excited. And she's like, oh, since he got it for me, I want to take a picture, the first picture with him. And I'm like, okay, cool. Got him all set up, snap that picture. And she's like holding that Polaroid and she's shaking it. And she starts to see it and she like just mortified, like, Caleb, your eyes are closed. And she was so upset. And I'm like, oh, girlfriend, yeah, you don't get 10 takes on this. So
right.
It was cute and endearing and just like a moment of like, yep, this is what you used to have to do. You got one shot.
Yeah, and especially like when you're shooting sheet film, it's just you shoot it and then you have to send it to the lab and then you have to wait for it, and maybe there was a hair in the film holder, and it's like you wouldn't have known that, but you had to leave your setup overnight just to check the chrome in the next morning, and it's like, okay, well then now we got to redo that. Whereas now it's like, okay, it's good, let's move on. The downside is that you don't get as much time to kind of really work over it because a lot of it can happen in post. But it's very much a good and bad thing,
Yeah, I mean,
I don't really support fully electric vehicles. Hot take, but because I think hybrids are a much better use of the materials for the battery sizes that we need to have a greater number of people have it be accessible, and there's not a great charging network, all over. In a lot of parts of the country, there isn't any charging network, so you've got those kinds of infrastructure that have to be built out to accommodate it. Whereas if you have hybrid, then I think it's a better transitional piece.
So when you modify your lights,
yep,
and I've taken some close looks at some of your photos. Are you a box? Are you a gridded box? Are you an umbrella kind of guy? A big beauty dish man? What's your pleasure?
Well, my pleasure is I've used all of those, and again, it's like there's not really one great answer. There's some of those things work really well for one thing. Like this last time, because over the course of the maker camp, okay, so let me go back a little bit. When I had my setup at the collective where the first makers showed up just randomly, I had a front light, I had some bounce, I had some bottom bounce, I probably had a couple of grids from behind. I mean, I had like the full setup. So you got like 6, 7, 8 lights, whatever. Then when I went to spring make, I knew that it had to be a bigger format because there were going to be more people. And so on that one, I had V flats where I had 2 heads in each side to make the white, pure white behind, and then I had like I think 2 front umbrellas with faces, and then I had an overhead back kicker for the hair, and it was like, okay, that's it's overkill, but it was it's how you shoot fashion, right? And that was the experience I wanted to give. And so I loaded all that up because a couple months later, Jimmy and Patrick and Austin had come up with this idea of this Maker Camp event. And they're like, hey, do you think you want to, be a part of this? Would you come up and, it's upstate New York. It's in October. It's our first time. We don't know what it's going to be like. Do you want to come up? And I was like, sure. Because that's on my motorcycle trip. I relearned this philosophy of if it sounds cool, if it's going to be fun, just say yes. I mean, I may lose money. I may not, I may not make any money. I may just entirely be done for the experience. But if it's going to be fun, I'm going to do it. And so I said yes. And I loaded up all the stuff that I had shot before at Spring Make. And I show up and I figured I'd be inside somewhere. I figured, because there's, the buildings, blah, blah, blah. And so Austin walks me over to where I shoot, and it's corrugated steel, open on all sides, wind howling through, and I'm like, I've got one outlet I can plug into. I'm like a 15 amp circuit. And I'm like, well, most of my gear is staying in the truck. So, because I've got a wind tunnel. I know stuff's going to be blowing around. I know I don't have power for it because I can really only run one light and a laptop. And so that really just focused me down to the essentials. So I've got a background that I've got bagged, and I've got one umbrella with a front face on it. And then I've got some reflection. And that was how I started. And that first year, like nobody really knew what to expect. No one had seen, a couple of people that had been to Spring Make had come up, and then some of the makers that I'd met the year before, they kind of knew what getting a picture was going to be like. But it was really almost like I was busking on the subway, like pulling people in to like get a picture and say, try to say, hey, I'm just going to take your picture and I'm going to email it to you because why not, right? And that's how it started.
Did you know that you were going into it like this is all going to be black and white?
Yeah, I did. Because I had shot when I moved to Cleveland, I wanted to kind of do some fun projects, some portraiture and stuff. And I thought black and white would be a nice way to go because everybody looks good in black and white. Like, if you've got skin things or if you got a sunburn or whatever it is, I think it kind of goes away. And then also I can show all those pictures from various different things and they all kind of match. It's like the lighting, the color isn't, would be kind of an issue, or somebody's got like a pink jacket and someone's got an orange dress and so it'd be distracting from the color side of things. So that was really the beginning of the process of thinking of, let's go black and white. Let's make it very traditional. Let's kind of explore the medium. It's something I started doing when I was in high school and I really loved it. But I hadn't really focused on that commercially. So it just kind of really started me leaning into that and kind of developing my own digital recipes for how I process the files so they look like the way they look.
Yeah, no, a lot of your images, especially in front of the white sweep, I think have sort of that Richard Avedon feel to them, right?
Sure.
You've got like really, really sharp focus, really, really good blacks in all of them. And he's got a series that I personally like where he sort of went to like the American Southwest and was photographing vagrants in the desert. And I feel like, again, you capture a lot of that essence with the maker community as well. It's got a similar energy. I think it's cool. So,
well, I think like when he was shooting with 8x10 cameras, and I feel like I'm not really sure how he lit it. I know some of it was natural light and reflection and stuff like that. I had seen a lot of that stuff in the magazines back in the day, and when they printed magazines. But I looked at everything. Like literally, if it was a picture, if it was in a photo magazine, if it was in a photo book, I would go to the local bookstore, and in Portland, that's Powell's, where it's like 4 stories of books. And so I would just like stand in the photo section and just like flip through them and like you do, like look in the eyes, see what the lighting is. And so I looked at everything. And so I can't really say that like Avedon, if it's an influence, it is an influence because there's people there and it is in black and white, but it's not anything that I'm consciously like referring to or thinking of, oh, I've got to make it look like that picture. It's more about capturing that person. And I don't think I'm pretty sure we probably didn't work in the same way. Because once I've got my light up, once I've lit it, you'll not see my modeling light on. I don't use the modeling light on those. Unless, at nighttime, then I got to turn on because I got to have something to see by. But once it's lit, I know that if you're in front of me, I've got some sweet spots, where different things happen in that kind of sphere of light. But I'm not even really looking at that. I don't really care. That's not my focus. It ends up looking lit because that's kind of the subconscious focus. But the real focus is just talking to that person and listening to their story and their energy. And I look at it like when their energy is peaking, that's when I'm taking the picture, not when they're looking in the best light. Because the light's not on, I don't care about that. I really just want to have that energy. So that's the moment that I'm trying to capture, is just them fully having their energy come out in a conversation and an expression, and just allow them to be at that moment seen for who they are as a person without any kind of judgment or editing. So
TJ, I know you've obviously seen these photos, but you've never been photographed by Mark, obviously.
Nope.
It is kind of fun. No, it's really fun actually to like go back and watch like the whole series, like he's talking about, like the moments that he's capturing, because I mean, he captures like these real authentic laughing hyped moments and stuff, but like the whole series that he sends you at the end of it is so cool and it's so fun to look back at. It also gets really uncomfortable sometimes because he gets like this close to your face. Camera lens right here. And he's like, it's fine. And you're like, ah!
Yeah.
And I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting kind of hot in here.
Somebody tagged Stone in the comments. He might be awake.
Could be.
Could be.
I saw him in here earlier.
Okay, so let's say you were going to take another trip from Cleveland.
Wait. So one second. Well, think of that. But then, so going back to this year, so since I shot, every year I try to change the lighting a little bit, whether it's, a little different angle, a little different, like whatever it is, just to kind of give somebody another style of picture. And they'll exist in the same kind of visual space, but they'll be different enough that it doesn't look like they got the same picture every year. And this year I was like, well, I might as well do something that's different because I want it to be really different for myself. So I basically lit 2 overlapping sets on 2 different channels of lights that had 2 different effects. And then that basically gave me 6 different positions around the space that I could shoot pictures that would have different angles of light, different reflectivity, different energy. And that was just kind of juggling the balls kind of thing to just give people a wide range of variety, and then also kind of let me have the tools that if somebody had a certain look that I thought would look better in one kind of light, I would move them to one spot, and then somebody else would come up with different clothing or different energy, and I move them to a different spot.
That's really cool and flexible.
Yeah,
and
very flexible
at the same time, right? Because you're probably working out of like a, 20 by 20 or smaller, right?
Yeah, so somewhere in that space, maybe a little bit longer, but yeah. And this year we had the rain, so I knew that the rain was coming, and I had built the set kind of under the overhang, and then all my stuff's in tubs. So when it started raining, I mean, it was unbelievable. And like the top half of the place where we shoot, the water kept inching down and down and down, and like it'd cover the first 5 feet, and then the first 20 feet, and then like 25 feet, and then they were digging trenches around it, and it was crazy.
It was wild.
Next thing you know, one of his tubs was just like floating down the hill.
Right.
A little boat.
Right, a little total boat contest winner.
Dude,
There goes Mark swimming after his gear. He's like, come back.
Somebody take a picture. This is an interesting moment. That's our camera guy. That's the photography guy. What do we do?
So what are you, Mark, what are you working on right now? Anything super fun?
Well, unfortunately, since I'm an idiot, I decided that it'd be a great time because there's 5 years of Maker Camp, that there'd be a really cool thing to put a book together where I put all my favorite shots from the various different years and then have it at Maker Camp. Or I was trying to think, like, if I do it on like a self-publishing thing where people can order it, then if they can't go to Maker Camp, then they can order it. Or I might bring some to Maker Camp, and then, you know, it'd be like a yearbook where everybody could run around and sign everybody's pages and stuff. And I thought maybe, I'll find my favorite 100 pictures. And like right now I'm at like 500 pictures, and those are like my favorite 500 pictures. So I've got to kind of condense it down a little bit.
I mean,
have a great summer, never change.
Anyone locally who could help you with like print on demand publishing, so that like you can copyright your images and whatever copy you're going to want to do, but then the orders are placed digitally and then fulfilled individually through a printer. Have you seen that before?
I mean, that's kind of what I was thinking. I know like Amazon has like their self-publishing, and then you can order that, and then that's kind of basically print on demand. But I don't know of any like smaller local places, but I'm still kind of in the early phases of kind of exploring how I want to do it.
I love the yearbook idea. I mean, says the girl who walked around WorkbenchCon last year in boots that people signed. So, I mean, I love that idea like a lot.
You just like signatures.
Yeah, right. Well, I want like, because I went through, I'm like still going through all the images, and so I want, my concept was I would try to find my favorite and then group those people's pictures so I would find the best picture of them. So I wasn't like having like 10 pictures of like Pat Lapp and then like one picture of like you guys. So I wanted to kind of narrow it down so everybody had a small amount, but they were the best pictures of them. And that was, you know, some of it's like I remember the conversation I had when I took this picture, or what they were telling me about, or like this expression's really good, or there's like a really great energy of 4 or 5 people that are in that picture. So there's going to be some people that aren't going to be in there, probably just maybe I haven't found the great picture of them yet, or I've got to cut it at some point, because each year I'm shooting, I don't know, 5,000 to 7,000 pictures or something like that. So it's a little insane.
Let's be honest. It's going to be 50 pages of Jeff.
Right.
And then 1 page of 400 other people all photoshopped in like a
composite photo of Jeff.
Yes.
Right, yes. It'll be arranged in his picture.
If you squint, it's still Jeff.
Yes.
Okay. None of us were 100% sure when you posted that post of Jeff and the birthday. That threw all of us off, and we all forgot that it actually was his birthday.
Well, because I think like sometimes I like to, you know, mess with some people, and they'll be like, I just got like 10 birthday messages, like randomly, like, why do people think it's my birthday? And so it's just a little bit of fun for me.
I got them for like a week after. Hey, sorry I missed your birthday. I'm like, cool, you're early or late.
So, Mark, do you know that it actually was Jeff's birthday? You were just like a week late?
Coincidence?
I was like, wait, what? And then everyone felt like a bad friend because nobody wished him a happy birthday.
Okay, so in your professional opinion, as a worker of, you know, lighting and photography and all that, was the moon landing faked?
No.
Is the Earth flat?
Blink twice if you were forced to say this by a government operative.
I see that awfully flat state that you're living in has affected your perspective.
I keep looking. I don't see this ocean that everybody keeps telling me about.
Right.
Yeah, and the NBA is choreographed, and what are some other fun ones?
We're
A
all in a
tinfoil not only makes a stylish hat, but it will block the government's mind control rays. That's
We're
important.
all in a simulation.
Mark's like, what did I sign up for?
So now you said you went to school for photography and
I did, yeah. So I was gonna end up with an art degree, but then I switched to communication school because it turns out I can't draw.
okay,
But I came like this close to an art degree because printmaking is basically just real fancy tracing.
nice.
And anyway, I got into printmaking and then really dove down a photography rabbit hole because I actually liked the printing side of it a lot. I liked the chemistry and the magic and doing non-silver stuff, and it's a really, really fun medium. And when I was finishing school, like the Lomo cameras were really hitting their stride
Okay.
and coming out with all kinds of funky new stuff all the time.
Yep.
And yeah, so you could get pretty wild, but I did like the amount of control and constructing a photograph that you got in the studio, right? So you can still get wild, but you can get wild on purpose. And that was pretty great. So
So are you doing any of the printmaking too or anything? Or
like as an adult?
yeah.
I've cut some linoleum blocks in like the last 5 years, but I do most of my printing is now holding wood turning tools. I make bowls.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of bowls, a lot of big bowls, a lot of small bowls. And then
Medium size.
I have a
Russian
Rolleiflex.
bowls.
Yeah, there's a Rolleiflex kind of like just over that heap of crap right there.
Mhm.
And you can still get 120 film locally also. And so I've got a pile of exposed 120 film, but I don't know. Getting it developed is just it's low on the family priority totem pole.
Right. Well, you give it to your kids as a graduation present from college, so that it's vintage, and they can develop that for their childhood.
It's not the worst idea I've ever heard.
And by
Yeah,
then, it'll probably be
some-
$50 a roll to process.
Yeah, right. By the time they get around to it.
This whole roll of film is just shots of Dad's belly button. What the heck is this?
He held the camera backwards at his belly button.
He had a henna tattoo around his belly button.
Hey,
What the heck is
don't
surf prep
spread
and
rumors until you see it personally.
what in the heck is surf prep and what is their thing with porpoises?
Look, man, if you're gonna have a tattoo made out of henna, it should be a ring of porpoises, and it also needs the word forever involved because henna tattoos are forever.
I feel like there's
And
a
that,
deep
and that tattoo
metaphor.
goes front and back, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Well, the circle of porpoises is more like a belt of porpoises.
That would be pretty amazing.
Ooh,
No,
porpoise
secretly,
suspenders.
if Jessie was going to find a way to convince me to get a tattoo, I so dearly want like a really not so classy like tribal armband, but I want you to be able to like squint and look at it, and I want it to be able to actually read everybody Wang Chung tonight because that would be fucking hilarious.
Okay.
I thought
I
you
can
were
make
gonna
that. We could make that happen in Atlanta.
I mean,
Yeah,
like I've had Chat GPT draw it up for me a couple of times because I think it's hilarious, but
And you've been
Yeah.
hitting the sauce a little bit too.
well, I mean, fun is fun,
Yeah.
right?
Jesse, TJ keeps suggesting like if somebody twists my arm to get a tattoo at Workbench Con, I
I'm
think
gonna
the lady
get my
doth
tattoo of the
protest a
freckle.
little too
Guys,
much.
wait.
You got. I mean, I got tattooed in Atlanta last year. So, yeah, it's a possibility. Don't
I mean, I'm
tempt
really
me with a
surprised
good
at Baker
time.
Camp that we haven't had a tattoo person because it seems
That
like,
actually kind of comes as a surprise to me too.
yeah. I mean, there's plenty of tattooed people.
Mm-hmm.
Next year.
Yep. We'll surprise you with something next year, Mark.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice.
Not next year, this year, October.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I have to spend
Anyways,
between
coming up
now
quickly.
and October tattooing watermelons, and that's what you practice on, right? Because the ink will go into the watermelon skin.
I don't personally tattoo watermelons, but hey, if that's your thing.
Well, I
Are we
can't practice
tattooing
on people. I guess my
pictures
dog
of
got some room.
watermelons?
I start putting tattoos on my dog, but I think they'll take it, and that's not okay.
Yeah, I think they would take your dog. I would take your dog.
She's
According to
already
the
got
secret
but it was from when she got spayed. So
According to the Secret Life of Pets, which I've watched about 1,000 times, pigs.
Pigskin.
Yeah, there's the pig. There's the pig that has all the tattoos on him.
yeah, but okay, not intentionally offending all the vegans and vegetarians in the chat right now, but like that pig skin could be turned into chicharrones, boys and girls. And I wonder if you tattoo it first and then fry it, do you get tattooed chicharrones? And now I'm going to lose 2 hours tonight on the internet to find out.
Or your pigs can just be friends and not food.
Exactly.
No, fish are friends, not food.
No, fish are food, not friends.
I don't remember from that Finding Nemo documentary. I think that you have it backwards.
I do, but fish.
Should we get to a fan question?
All right.
Please.
Okay. Well, I guess it's not really a question. There's no question mark. But this is a direct quote for Mark. Are you ready? Please explain in a multi-paragraph essay format how meeting Jeff from Maker's Way changed your life for the best.
Well, I feel like there was a part of me that hadn't fully bloomed until I busted his balls at Jimmy's, and that really brought me into my own by really doubling down on some of those digs. And then obviously at some point I think Jeff is actually going to start tattooing people next to my photo set. So
that's kind of what I was going for.
Okay.
That could be.
Yeah, I feel like Jeff. I think that would keep him out of trouble if he was like supposed to be there and tattooing people.
I think he would be too distracted having you as a neighbor.
No, you guys are. You're missing the opportunity for synergy. You said that you try and change how you take the portraits every year so that they're a little bit different. This year, you only take portraits of people actively getting tattoos by Jeff.
Yeah.
Think of the raw emotion you'll be able to capture in those moments.
Yeah, and if you thought my line was long this year.
Yeah, well, wait until we give Jeff a tattoo gun made out of a Casio Walkman and Bic pen ink.
Well,
which is how I think at least 2 of his tattoos were made. So.
What was that?
You guys follow 21 Grams and seen what he's been doing with the leather? He's been taking the tattoo gun and like using it on the leather that he's been working.
Oh, that's
Very
cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and because he had just gone up to Maker Camp up to the Blackthorn to teach the leather with Ethan.
Oh,
so they just like made the shoes.
Yeah. That's kind of cool because then you could like put a design in your leather shoe.
Right.
Before you make it.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. That's so cool.
Yeah. No, go check out his page, and he's got a bunch of stuff where he's like tattooing like bags and hands and like wallets and stuff.
This is almost getting a little out of hand. We've got Hugh telling us to incorporate leather into the woodworking, and now we've got to incorporate tattoos into the leather work into the woodworking. Like, there's a lot of moving parts here.
I know, and then we're going to have to put resin all over the top of it.
Oh, yeah. Obviously, the entire thing sponsored by Total Boat. Total Boat, baby!
Oh, that is really cool.
Okay, Mark, left turn. So, travels, you're kind of all over the place, and I promised the people that we would get into why we had just a random video of a rhinoceros in your intro video. Can we start with that and then to kind of like see where we go with your worldly travels from there?
Well, my buddy Dave and I in February went to Nepal with a company called Motorcycle Sherpa that guides, I think it's like 10 or 12-day tours of kind kind of along the Annapurna Trail up into the Himalayas on Royal Enfield motorcycles. And one of the stops, we were waiting for dinner. We're just kind of, we had like an 8 o'clock reservation, and it was like 7 o'clock. So we're just walking up and down, looking at the shops and stuff. And then Dave's like, grab your camera. And I'm like, what? Holy. And we're just filming this rhino walking by, and it was completely insane. And the guy who runs the tours, he's been doing it for like 8 years, and he's never seen a rhino.
Like never seen a rhino, or never seen a rhino in town?
Like, period. Like, there's an elephant sanctuary down the road a ways that we also, went to, and then had a kind of a boat ride that shows, the wildlife and everything. And so you've seen elephants, but no just wild rhinos walking down the street.
How are you so calm in that moment and not freaked out when it was like 5 feet from you?
I mean, I think a lot of times, like, you could tell it didn't care. Like, we weren't really on its radar at all. It was just walking through town. It was just having its evening stroll. As long as we didn't do anything to it, it didn't care. And that little dog, like, we're like, what's that dog thinking? Like, it just keeps yapping at it. And nope, that rhino was just walking down, going wherever it wanted to go.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I feel like when you're just like rolling around with like built-in armor, things just don't tend to bother you.
Right. And it didn't have a bunch of people in, when you see those videos of people going up to the bison and like getting right up into its face, trying to take a selfie with it, you've got to be pretty stupid to think that a 2,000-pound animal really is not going to hurt you if it touches you.
Yeah, bison are the size of Volkswagen Beetles. It is unnerving.
Yeah. And they're fast. They're surprisingly fast.
And then we get into Mises, and I mean, those are just deceptively big. Sorry, the singular moose.
Yes,
yeah, there's a reel of a moose just blasting through snow that makes its way through my doom swiping, and every time I stop because it's so awesome, and they're so big. They're so big.
But they're not really majestic, though. I think they're powerful, but like when I think majestic, it's like gazelle or something. And they're just, it's a little Rocky and Bullwinkle.
They're like what?
What are they like?
Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Oh, okay. Now it makes sense. That one made sense. That was good.
Yeah.
All right, Mark, the time is now 9:55, and I want to ask you if there's anything that you want to talk about today that we haven't had a chance to talk about.
I mean, every time I'm on like something like this, I always like to try and shout out my friends, because like the MotoGo benefit is coming up in March. I think it's March 16th, and they're raffling a Harley Davidson motorcycle. So if you go to their page, you can go, and I don't know what year it is. It looks, I don't know, it's probably either late 70s or early 80s bagger. But it's pretty good odds probably. And it's out of Cleveland. So if you're in Cleveland or the Midwest, or St. Louis is 9 hours away. But it's a great thing because they have classes at the building that they're at, or they also will take motorcycles and set up a class at each of the schools that they teach at. And it gives kids an opportunity to get their hands on, learn how to do something, succeed in taking down a motor, getting a bike started. Just being able to be exposed to that at such a young age, and not having, you may not have a motorcycle sitting in your backyard to take apart, but your kids do, but not every kids do. So that's one of the people I like to talk about all the time. That's one of the reasons I'm going to try and get back to Cleveland in March and take pictures at the benefit. But all the community spaces that are open to you, like Soulcraft or Skidmark, where you can do something that you love and share your energy with people and like bring people into it. Like, I really love those kind of spaces. So those are the kind of things I like to talk about.
Does Rock and Roll Hall of Fame still have the inflatable Pink Floyd wall in there?
I have never been there.
That's okay.
The wall is inflatable.
Yeah, there's like a display of Pink Floyd's The Wall, and it's like all of the weird, cartoony, wild stuff. But it was there when I was there like 15 years ago. Actually, it's probably more than that now. Time flies.
But Cleveland's a great city, and everyone's always surprised that I moved from California to Cleveland. But it really is. Everybody I've ever met there, like I roll in there and I'm there for 5 minutes off the road, and people are offering to let me use the shower at their house. Like they've never met me before, and they're just like so welcoming, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it's not especially close, but the art scene in Columbus also is really surprisingly good.
Yeah, no, and the guy that runs Motorcycle Sherpa, he's out of Columbus. He has Old Bike Barn as well, and White Knuckler brand knives and things. Those are all out of Cleveland, or out of Columbus. Sorry. So I'll get down there occasionally, and then when we try to get down to Southern Ohio to ride off road down there, we'll ride a little bit close to there.
I gotta be honest. My entire understanding of Cleveland comes from the two
Drew Carey show?
episodes. No, of 30 Rock, where where Liz Lemon moves to Cleveland. It's just everyone's so nice.
Yeah, no, it's a great town, and I had never really thought that I was going to move to Cleveland until I rode through and I discovered it. And then I was there for, I don't know, a couple months, and my dad sends me an email, and he's like, "This is a house in Cleveland that your grandmother lived when she was 16." And so I rolled over to that address, and the house is still there. So I've got a Cleveland connection that I didn't even know about until I moved there.
Oh, that's cool.
Please tell me you're going to buy that house one day.
I don't think so.
He doesn't have to. He can just walk up to the front door, knock, and he can go take a shower anytime he wants, it sounds like.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's the Cleveland way.
Yes.
There you go.
And then, like, obviously motorcycles, another passion. So the photography and the motorcycles are kind of the two things that I really like doing. And again, everybody thinks of me as a photographer, but during the pandemic, I spent, a couple years remodeling a house, doing, plumbing, electrical, freestanding hardwood floors, sheetrock, tile, landscaping. So it's, it's pretty dirty hands at that point too.
I love it.
Speaking of sanding, have you heard about Pro Foam Surf Prep? I was gonna try and work a pitch in there, but I didn't have the truck wasn't gassed up in my brain.
I mean, he's talking about home renovation, so could talk about surf prep.
Yeah, I did a lot of sanding.
Line of sanding, drywall sandpaper. It's drywall abrasives.
Oh, so like 9 years?
What's their specialty? Is it one industry or another that they manufacture for? Or?
Surf prep?
Yeah.
They're in all lines of abrasives. So they have sanders, abrasives, dust collection. I was talking to Hannah the other day, and she's like, yeah, their main customer is actually painters, which is interesting. Okay. Just going through all the drywall, which I love my surf prep stuff, and I hate drywall, and I put the love and the hate to duke it out, and it turns out even with surf prep, I still hate drywall. It's the worst.
Drywall is a lot of dust.
It sucks a lot less with the vac system, though, and I have learned that. I've done way too much drywall in the last 6 months, and I finally just drug my whole setup inside and just went to town with my 6-inch and a squishy pad on it. It was awesome. I mean, the amount of dust that was left at the end was very minimal. My hair still felt terrible afterwards, but the dust on the floor was not that bad.
Because now, what do you have left to do on the house?
A lot.
Yes. The answer is yes.
Yes.
Okay.
There is a lot. It's coming along, though. So.
Well, we're coming up on our hour, and we pride ourselves at only making you suffer for a tight 60 minutes. So before we let TJ just off the leash to do whatever the heck he wants. We want to thank our sponsors again. Obviously, Surf Prep, George Supply Co., Team Stone. I don't know, man. I'm kind of a Team Hop guy, but don't tell Stone that.
Hold on.
Don't tell. How many shirts do you have?
Amazing.
There we go. That's true friendship right there.
Oh, that was amazing.
Mark, where can everybody find you? What's the best place?
Well, you can on the Instagram is the best place to see all the either the current work or the like. Oh, right now I'm editing, and the ones I find that I'm surprised by, I'll be posting those. So they're not current, but I try to tell what year it's from so people can kind of see what they look like back then. And so that's just Mark Adams Pictures on Instagram, and then the website's Mark Adams Pictures as well. So for all of your photo and commercial needs.
So if you're not following Mark Adams, go do it now. And if you don't, we can no longer be friends. So catch 22. There we go. You're going to get either a lot or negative followers from that one. But thank you so much for hanging out with us for an hour. It was it was great getting to know you, know a little bit more about your involvement in the maker community. I still had no idea that anybody actually was in Cleveland, so it's nice to meet one person.
Well, I think like there's so much like Portland's got we just actually toured a makerspace in Portland that we were checking out because my girlfriend Sarah wants to get back into woodworking. She'd done some furniture and stuff like that, and so she's got she's got a ton more experience with wood tools than I do, but she doesn't really have space at the house to do it. So she's looking at a space in Portland called Past Lives that we looked at. I think they've got 21 or 29,000 square feet of space, and they've got metal, they've got plastics, they've got glass, they've got beadwork, they've got small spaces that you can rent too. So that's a place that we just toured. And then obviously if you're in Portland, the Portland Maker meetups are always the thing.
Jessie, I think that's directed at you.
Friday or Saturday?
Hey, I'm not a part of scheduling. There's a few other people. I just recently got reacquainted with them and took some portraits there. So was able to kind of bring kind of Maker Camp East a little bit west for one night when they had a thing at a brewery, Migration Brewing. So they were generous enough to let me set up and take some pictures in there.
I know I heard about it that one Thursday night.
I know somebody from up there came down.
Yeah, Kamani.
The celebrity.
You left me here.
IT celebrity.
All right. Jessie, you got any last write-in questions? Anything you want to go over?
I don't actually have any other questions. I'm just really thankful that you decided to come spend the evening with us and chit-chat.
Of course.
All right.
That's all I have to say.
You find it really weird to like look because right now it's on my screen it's stacked in heights. So every time people are talking, I'm like,
it's a subliminal thing. It's like in sales where you got to get people nodding. So we just figure if people are nodding the entire time, they're going to tell people that they had a pleasant time on the show, and we'll get more people.
Okay.
So it's very, very psychological. So all right, TJ.
Speaking of psychological and psychology, I tend to wrap up every single episode that I'm on by asking our guest one final request, which is, would you be willing to share with us a motivational thought or a quote or a reason to kick open the door of your workshop or go get awesome or take a risk? What would you like to share with the other boys and girls?
Well, I mean, I think I'll tell like one of the things that drives me to create and to be the way I am. And it's just trying to build that connection between people. And really just be genuinely interested in the people that are right in front of you. So when you're on my set and I'm asking you a question, I really want to know that answer. And I'll look back at a picture in a couple of years and I'll remember the story you told me because I was trying to be really present in those moments and try to just be that with the people around you.
Love it.
All right, and with that, we're gonna wrap it up. So everybody, we'll be back next Wednesday. Same bad time, same bad. Oh, Stone is just like peeking out at me. Ooh, hey Stone. Same bad time, same bad channel. We'll see you guys next week. Bye bye.